Hello, and welcome to Old Toy, New Joy, the show where I share with you my previously enjoyed toys I purchased from online sources, thrift stores, and collector shows that once belonged to someone else. Yes, this toy is broken, but it doesn't mean we need to throw him away. I've already featured repair of a 1980s G.I. Joe in a past episode of Old Toy New Joy, but I thought it prudent to do another one, simply because I feel that many people out there, children, adults, collectors, people that just like to play with toys, feel that once their action figure falls apart, that's all she wrote, and it's time to discard. Not always the case. I purchased this 1980s G.I. Joe Law and Order figure from a thrift store about 3 years ago, I think. You know, in a baggie with some other stuff. And he seemed to be in great condition. He had his crotch piece and his thumbs. Everything was intact, good paint. And I put him in his Jeep, and I kept him there for about a year. And recently, I went to pull him out of the Jeep, and only his torso and head and arms came. The legs and crotch piece stayed in the Jeep. I was like, oh man. So this was a case of another dried out O-ring. The black rubber elastic ring that holds the head and torso to the legs together. And I've mentioned it many times before, these dry out over time. So you often see 3 3/4 action figures that have O-rings from the late 70s and early 80s, made by Mego or Mattel or Kenner. These O-rings dry out over time. And as was the case with many of the Mego 1979 Buck Rogers action figures I recently featured, some of those are ready to go. And one had already been replaced by somebody with a simple elastic. A simple yellow elastic is not really the best way to do it. These are already ready to get stretched out. They're not really meant to be wound tightly and hold small pieces together. They're meant to hold pencils together or curled up pieces of paper. It's a stationary item, right? Office stationery. You can purchase replacement O-rings on eBay, which I've never done, but I've come close. Or you can use Rainbow Loom elastics. And if you've been a parent over the last few years, like me, you might have a bunch of these lying around because they were a huge craze, around 7 years ago. And they're everywhere. And when you put them together and double them up, they can have a lot of pull and a lot of strength, and they'll last a while. And I've done it before, and I'll do it again. Now, this particular figure is giving me a little bit of trouble because there's an all-important screw in his back, and you'll see this with the figures of this generation, late 70s, early 80s, that have the O-ring holding everything together. They've got a screw in the back. That screw can get rusty over time, especially if the previous owner of this action figure ever put him in the bathtub, even once. Then the water would get in there and start to corrode that screw and get fused in there and make it tricky to get the screw out. So I put a generous amount of WD-40 oil in that hole, and I'm just letting it soak into the screw. And then we're going to use one of these eyeglass repair kit screwdrivers. You can get them just about anywhere. They're very handy to get in there and get that screw out. And then I might as well explain the entire process. I'm already over halfway done. I have this dental tool I picked up a long time ago from a drugstore to help me, once I wind the new elastics around the screw area, loop it through the crotch piece, And around this hook, you can still see some of the original dried O-ring on this hook. If this piece doesn't have a hook, then it's a much more complicated process to repair. You would have to take these legs apart, get this broken hook out, put a new hook in. You need a hook to hook around that elastic. And so you would need a spare hook from another action figure. Or I don't know if they sell replacement hooks. They probably do. They sell everything now on eBay or something. So we're going to wait patiently for the WD-40 oil do its magic and loosen up this rusty screw. Okay, so our hard work, mostly patience on our part and hard work on the part of the WD-40, has paid off. And let that be a lesson to you, everybody. Stick to your plan. Let things happen. Be patient. Don't rush. You don't want to damage something or give up too hastily. It just took a few minutes and the screw has been loosened. So we're going to proceed now. Undo that screw in the back. You can even hear the screwdriver is having a little bit of trouble gripping. Okay, now you can see what the insides look like. So there's the remains of the O-ring. There's the screw that just fell out. You don't want to lose that, otherwise you could have a tough time going to the hardware store and finding the exact same screw. Maybe, maybe not. I haven't had to do it, but I don't want to do it. Okay. So there's your O-ring. It's dried out. That part feels pretty good, but obviously something happened down here. And you'll see that the torso has grooves to hold the neck and head, and also shoulder joints. And when you put it all back together again, you just got to line it all up, put the screw back in. But first, we have to attach the new elastics. So you can see here, I've taken 2 elastics, doubled them each up, so it's more like 4 elastics, and put them around the hole where the screw goes. Basically, this hub here is going to hold that elastic in place and allow you to attach it to the legs. So you put your dental tool through the crotch piece like that, attach it to the elastics, and you just loop it through. Was this easy? No, it was not easy. Maybe you've noticed I've changed the rainbow limb elastics because the other two got too worn away from all my fumbling around with this dental tool and my fat stubby fingers. So no, I had to change out the elastics. This took many attempts, but again, be patient, don't give up. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to have to hook the legs, put all the limbs and the joints, and put the other half of the torso back on top and screw them together. You got to be really careful, and you got to take your time, and you got to keep those elastics pushed down, otherwise they'll pop up and fly out, and you'll have to start all over again. So just to give you an idea, this is how everything's going to go back together again. You got to make sure you put the proper arm, in the proper socket. Put the head the right way, otherwise you're going to end up putting together a backwards figure. I've decided to put the head, arms in place and put the torso back on first. That way I won't have to worry about holding those elastics down while I try to loop them through the legs. If they don't go through the legs and they snap back inside, I will have to take the action figure apart again and reattempt to attach the elastics to the leg. Okay, we're almost there. I've got the arms, the head, the torso back together again, elastic band, looped through the crotch piece. Now I just have to attach the legs. There we go. Good as new. So thank you so much for joining me today on Old Toy New Joy and allowing me to share with you my vintage G.I. Joe repair. If you liked the video, please like the video and we will keep them coming. In the meantime, I do encourage you to visit other episodes of Old Toy New Joy. You might see something that interests you, something that reminds you of something you had, something that makes you think, I never had that, but I think I'd like to get into that. Transformers, wrestling figures, Thundercats, Ninja Turtles, Big Jim, Hot Wheels, Smurfs, you name it, I've probably got it. Until next time, this is your Toy Whisperer saying farewell from Old Toy New Joy.